Hey everybody, this is Shamika. As promised, this is part 2 of the video, what is a charge-off. I wanted to be able to explain what happens after the charge-off. It can go in a lot of different directions, and so I wanted to make a separate video because if I put them together, it really could confuse you guys. So as I stated before in the first video, that once the account is 180 days or 6 months without any payment due, it is officially termed charged off, which is the code of L. And so after that happens and it is written off the books with your creditor, there's a lot of different things that can take place. So I think I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different things that can happen. All right, so here we go. This is in no complete order. So I'm just going to go down the list as they kind of popped in my head. So the first thing is nothing happens. You can absolutely just not pay it. The company is probably too busy. Maybe your account just kind of got lost in the shuffle and nothing happens, and they do not come after you for an account that you did not pay. I do see that happen often with Merrick Bank, your First Access or your First Premier cards. Although those are your secured cards and they usually give you balances that are on the low end, I would advise and suggest that you do not screw over the little guy, because those companies are usually the only people that will give you a credit card when you are trying to rebuild. All right, so nothing is the first thing. The second thing, your account could be sold to a debt collector. That's another, I believe, option that is in here, but you can make a settlement on that account, okay? And pretty much I will make a separate video on how you make a settlement, because that's a total another different thing, and I don't like to get the information all jumbled up and confuse you guys. But a settlement is they send you something in the mail saying that this is not an attempt to collect a debt, and they let you know that they are now the owners of this account, and they are willing to accept a lower amount than what you owe, or they give you different payment options to repay that balance. And if you sign and agree and you start to make payments, or you give them your information to automatically draft that from your account, that it would be considered a settlement. So that's another option that happens once an account is charged off. Another thing that happens is, and this kind of goes with the settlement, there's something that is called a debt buyer. A debt buyer would be pretty much a debt collection company, which would be your Midland Funding, your Phoenix Financial Services, your CMRE Financial Services. I'm trying to think of all the names, but those companies are debt collection companies, but they have to go out and buy that debt. So once your account is charged off, it's kind of put in the we're not going to try to collect this pile anymore. You have these debt buyers that come by and they say, well, we want to buy up all the debt that you have. And the creditor in turn sells all of the debt that they have that has not been paid or it's uncollectible. They sell it for like pennies on a dollar. So for example, they could have $50,000 worth of unpaid or uncollected debt that they may sell for $3,000 or $3,500. Mind you, if the debt collection company is successful in getting you to repay a portion of the debt, the original creditor does get some of that money. So just because they sell it to a debt buyer does not mean that they are completely losing out, because they are not, okay? Another thing that can happen is you could get sued. I am starting to see this a lot with Capital One and with Community Bank. They have been notorious for coming after people with small limits and are trying to sue them. I'm not really sure why this is happening. or how they necessarily select the individuals that they do. If I can find that in my research, believe me, I'll make a video on that. But as it stands right now, that is something that could absolutely happen. So please just don't get too comfortable thinking that just because it's charged off and they haven't bothered you, that it doesn't mean that they won't. I will also make another video on the difference of the statute of limitations, because that depends on how long they can pursue you for a debt. So I'll have to make another video on that as well. Okay, so stay tuned, because believe me, this is like a web, a weaving thing, and it kind of all goes together. All right. The next thing that happens, and this always happens if the company is large enough and can afford it, they usually take out something that is called trade insurance. And what happens with trade insurance is just like automobile insurance. If you were to get in a car accident and you wreck, you call your insurance company, and hopefully they cut you a check so that you can get the repairs done and that you can continue on business as usual. Trade insurance affords the creditor the opportunity to do the same thing. Pretty much all they're going to do is pick up the phone and say, hey, this individual defaulted on their portion of the contract that they specified that they were going to pay, and they didn't, and we'd like to collect. And they do get paid. I don't know the exact amount. Again, if I come across that in my research, I'll make sure I make a video on that. But the creditor does get paid from trade insurance. So if you heard me say earlier, they also can get paid if the debt collection company gets some money from you as well. So these are two ways that they can get paid. You know, they're making it out pretty good. They're making it out pretty good. So don't feel too bad when you can't pay your bills all the time, because they're making money regardless. Another thing that happens, you can dispute it. You happen to get lucky and the company is too busy to respond, and they're preoccupied, and they miss their 45-day window, and that item falls off your credit. Boom. I've seen it happen, especially individuals who have not touched their credit in years, and they just happen to one day want to clean it, and they just go through and dispute, and just boom, all of these things just fall off because the accounts are probably so old. Their file is probably filed way down under, or they could have met the statute of limitations and the company just hadn't updated to remove it off of their credit report. It could be a lot of different things. So disputing is one thing that you can do. And the last thing that can happen once an account is charged off, going back to if you agree to make a settlement with the company, if the company and you make a settlement agreement and they agree to accept $600 less than what you owe. So I'm going to do that in numbers. If you owe $2,000 and you guys made an arrangement for them to accept $1,300, that's $700 difference than what you really owe. At the end of the year, you will receive a 1099-C, which is a cancellation of debt. It is an IRS form that you have to now add that difference of income, which would be that $700. You now have to add that $700 onto your taxes. It will now be added as income because it is a 1099, so it's a form that is used to represent to add money to your taxes. So you know, I've seen 15,000, 17,000, especially for individuals who that nothing happens. Sometimes that nothing happens, it sits on your account, but you may get a bill at the end of the year, 1099-C, saying, hey, you know, we charged you off, and now we want you to claim this as income. That is what that form actually releases that company from the tax liability, which is why they now issue that to us. It relieves them, and it now puts us on the hook. So I would tell you, if you get those, you absolutely want to try to put those in, or you absolutely should put those in. That is what is required that you do. So I'm going to run down these 7 things really quick. I'm not going to go over them again. I'm just going to go over the topic real quick for brevity. Once again, nothing can happen. 2, you can make a settlement agreement. 3, they can be the debt can be bought by a debt buyer, which is usually an individual who belongs to a debt collection company. You can get sued. The creditor will almost always have trade insurance, so they're definitely going to file trade insurance to get some money from that account that you did not pay. You can dispute it and hopefully, keep your fingers crossed, it falls off. And then last but not least, 1099-C, which is a IRS form, which stands for cancellation of debt. And you get that if you agree or the settlement is made and the company accepts $600 less than the amount that you owe. That absolutely makes you qualifiable to get this 1099-C, and you will now have to add that as income into your taxes. So I hope this wasn't too long. I hope this wasn't confusing. I just wanted to let you know what the next process is, the next step after your account is charged off. Again, if you guys have any questions, please put them below. Any tips or suggestions, you can put those below as well. And thank you. Share my video, subscribe, hit the notification button. I'm definitely wanting to get my page to grow. I have a message, and I want to teach people how to maneuver in this credit world. And the only way to do it, excuse me, is to have someone break it down, and especially in a way that you guys can definitely understand it. So I hope that that's what I've been able to do. And I'll talk to you guys soon. So have a good one. Bye.